My best friend and I shared a sleeping bag on our camping trip. She turned to me, "Are you awake?" The coldest night of my life wasn't the one that nearly froze me to death. It was the night a single whispered question shattered 10 years of silence between my best friend and me. The forest was wrapped in darkness, the fire had burned down to glowing embers, and the wind pushed against our tiny tent as though it wanted to carry us away. We had shared countless adventures together, laughed through impossible situations, and promised nothing would ever change between us. But that night, inside one sleeping bag while the rain hammered against the tent, everything changed forever. Some moments arrive quietly, without warning, and before you realize it, they divide your life into 2 chapters, before and after. If you believe kindness, loyalty, and second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone you care about, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that remind us what truly matters. Emma and I had been best friends since we were 11 years old. We met because she accidentally spilled orange juice all over my science project during middle school. While everyone expected us to argue, we spent the afternoon rebuilding the project together, laughing so hard that neither of us cared about the ruined poster board anymore. That strange beginning somehow became the foundation of a friendship that survived high school heartbreaks, college applications, family problems, and every challenge life seemed determined to throw at us. We became the kind of friends people joked would probably grow old living next door to each other. Yet beneath all those years of comfort lived emotions I buried so deeply that even I pretended they no longer existed. The truth was simple but terrifying. Somewhere between helping her study for chemistry exams and driving 3 hours to surprise her on her birthday during college, I had fallen hopelessly in love with her. I never admitted it because I feared losing the most valuable friendship I'd ever known. Watching her date other people hurt more than I ever admitted, but I convinced myself that staying silent was the price of keeping her in my life. Every smile she gave me was enough to keep me pretending everything was fine. When we turned 28, Emma suggested we take one last camping trip before our busy careers made spontaneous adventures impossible. She had recently left a demanding job in the city after burning herself out with endless overtime, while I had spent months buried under deadlines as an architect. We both needed fresh air, quiet mornings, and a reminder that life existed beyond glowing computer screens. The campsite rested beside a mountain lake surrounded by towering pine trees. The water reflected the afternoon sunlight so perfectly it looked like another sky hidden beneath the earth. We hiked winding trails, skipped stones across the lake, and laughed about old memories until our stomachs hurt. For the first time in years, neither of us checked our phones every few minutes. The world seemed wonderfully far away. Late that afternoon, dark clouds rolled over the mountains much faster than the weather forecast had predicted. Strong winds whipped through the trees, bending branches until they groaned. By sunset, heavy rain crashed down around us. We rushed to secure the tent, but the storm became fierce enough to snap one of the poles supporting our shelter. Water seeped inside despite our efforts. As temperatures dropped sharply, another problem became impossible to ignore. The second sleeping bag had become soaked while we struggled outside. Mine remained mostly dry because it had stayed tucked inside the waterproof storage compartment. We searched every backpack and storage bin, hoping to find another blanket, but there was nothing. The nearest ranger station was miles away, and driving back through muddy mountain roads in the middle of the storm wasn't safe. We had only one practical choice. Neither of us made it awkward. Years of friendship had erased unnecessary embarrassment. We climbed into the same sleeping bag simply to stay warm, zipped it closed, and tried to ignore the howling wind outside. We lay facing opposite directions at first, leaving as much space between us as possible despite the cramped conditions. The storm only grew louder. Hours passed while neither of us slept. I listened to the rain striking the tent and wondered whether my heart was beating loudly enough for her to hear it. Then she quietly turned toward me. In the darkness came the soft question that would echo in my memory forever. "Are you awake?" For several seconds I couldn't answer. I knew that whatever came next might change everything we had spent a lifetime building. I whispered that I was. There was another long silence before she admitted she had been thinking about something for years but never found the courage to say it. Hearing those words made every fear inside me awaken at once. My mind imagined every possible ending except the one that was actually waiting. She explained that she had always believed I deserved someone extraordinary. She watched me support everyone around me without asking for anything in return. Whenever she struggled, I somehow appeared exactly when she needed help. When her father passed away unexpectedly, I spent nearly 2 weeks helping her mother organize paperwork, cook meals, and simply sit with the family in silence. I never asked for recognition. I simply couldn't imagine leaving her alone. As she remembered those moments, her voice grew heavier with emotion. She confessed that every relationship she had ever tried somehow failed because she constantly compared other people to the way I treated her. Nobody else listened the same way. Nobody else noticed when she smiled just to hide pain. Nobody else remembered tiny details she had mentioned months earlier. She spent years convincing herself that she only loved me as a friend because she feared ruining the safest relationship she'd ever known. My heart felt like it had stopped. The secret I had hidden for over a decade wasn't mine alone. Neither of us had spoken because we believed silence protected the other person. Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains while inside our tiny tent 2 frightened people finally stopped pretending. We didn't make dramatic promises. We didn't rush into unrealistic declarations. Instead, we simply admitted the truth we had both carried for years. Somehow that honesty felt even more powerful than any romantic speech ever could. Morning arrived quietly. The storm had disappeared. Golden sunlight poured through the trees, turning every raindrop into sparkling crystal. The lake looked completely different from the angry water we had watched the evening before. Nature itself seemed to whisper that storms never last forever. Walking beside the shoreline, everything felt strangely familiar and completely new at the same time. We were still best friends, still laughing about ridiculous memories, still teasing each other over burnt campfire pancakes. But beneath those ordinary moments rested a peace neither of us had known before. We no longer carried the exhausting burden of pretending. Life after the camping trip wasn't magically perfect. Some friends warned us that dating your best friend was risky. Others insisted relationships often destroy lifelong friendships. Their concerns weren't unreasonable. We understood the risk ourselves. There were moments of uncertainty. We occasionally wondered whether we were moving too slowly or too carefully. Whenever disagreements appeared, we feared every argument might damage something precious. But we also discovered an incredible advantage. We already knew how to communicate. We already knew how to apologize. We already knew how to choose each other during difficult days. Romance didn't replace our friendship. It grew from it. Months later, Emma admitted something that stayed with me forever. She said the happiest part wasn't finally becoming a couple. The happiest part was realizing she no longer had to hide her feelings from the person she trusted most. Years passed. Together we faced job changes, family illnesses, financial setbacks, and unexpected disappointments. None of those struggles disappeared simply because we loved each other. Yet every challenge became lighter because neither of us faced it alone. Sometimes we returned to that same mountain campsite. The broken tent had long been replaced. The sleeping bag had been retired years earlier. But every visit reminded us that life's greatest turning points rarely happen under perfect conditions. Sometimes they arrive during storms, surrounded by fear, uncertainty, and darkness. Sometimes all it takes is one honest question and the courage to answer it. Looking back now, I don't remember the freezing temperature or the soaked clothes nearly as clearly as I remember the relief of finally telling the truth. I had spent years believing silence protected love, when in reality silence only protected fear. Real love grows through honesty, patience, forgiveness, and friendship strong enough to survive uncomfortable conversations. If I could speak to the younger version of myself, the one terrified of losing his best friend, I would tell him that some risks are worth taking. Not because they always end happily, but because living honestly is better than spending years wondering what might have been. The forest eventually became just another place on a map. The storm faded into memory. Even the little tent disappeared long ago. Yet the lesson from that night continues to shape every day of our lives. Kindness creates trust. Trust creates courage. Courage opens the door to the life we were too afraid to imagine. Before we finish this story, please leave a comment with the words, "Truth changes everything," if you believe honest hearts eventually find each other. And if this story touched your heart, reminded you of someone special, or gave you hope that friendship, kindness, and patience can grow into something beautiful, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, subscribe to the channel, and tell us your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need hope more than they realize. Sometimes the greatest love stories don't begin with fireworks, grand gestures, or perfect timing. Sometimes they begin with two lifelong friends sharing a single sleeping bag during a violent storm, a whispered question in the darkness, and the courage to finally stop hiding the truth. That night didn't just save us from the cold. It saved us from a lifetime of wondering what could have been, proving that even after years of silence, love still finds its way home.